they were looking at the benefits, the clinical benefits in terms of monetary value. They were also looking at how waste would be reduced. For instance, waste is if you repeat an investigation which has already been performed. And actually their observation was that already during the second year, so the net benefit exceeded the cost of implementing the system. Well, you can read the report and decide yourselves whether you believe it, but I think this is probably the most positive result. But it means that the system must be good and it must be comprehensive and also used in the right way. So, this is a systematic review by Kawamoto from year 2005. He tried to find which are the elements of decision support that predict success. Well, decision support should be based on computer reminders. It should be automatic so that the user need not start a system and click into something, but the reminders, they should come automatically, or they should actually direct your workflow. There should be clear recommendations. Do this, give this drug at this dose, and even if you can click and the prescription is made automatically, so that makes it work. Decision support should be provided on time, at the time you are making the decision, at the location where you are making the decision. If all these 4 features were present, so more than 90% of the systems had some effect. In general, the effect is not very small. The absolute improvement, let's say in medication management, would be 15% or so. So this is not a magic bullet, as we have seen that there are no other magic bullets, but this is one of the things you can do. This is maybe the highest number of alerts overridden by users, more than 90%. And I think the drug-drug interaction are the most difficult ones to implement, because there's a lot of noise. The signal-to-noise ratio is very low. So we have 3 types of health information, and decision support is about combining those types of information by the computer, combining medical knowledge and individual patient data. And this is how people do. They search for guidelines, they type a search term, open the National Guideline Clearinghouse or some other source, the portal. Decision support makes a difference in that it's actually the electronic health record which will perform the search automatically. It will send patient data as a request message to the decision support server, and then it will receive feedback, should be very quick, in 1 or 2 seconds, and that feedback will be shown in the user interface, in the EHR, so that you don't have to shift to another software application. So the knowledge is automatically pushed to the user. We need coded data in the EHR to be able to do this. This is quite a comprehensive list of data, what we can utilize. The problem list for the patient, the medication list, test results, measurements like blood pressure, risk factors like smoking, procedures that have been performed or are being planned. And the treatment plan, care plan, what is going to happen for the patient, what is already planned. I think this is quite a comprehensive list. Can you imagine something else? Would you like to add something? I think this is also a summary screen you would like to see when you look at the patient report. You would like to see those things.
I think one thing that makes these tools difficult to move from country to country is that there are local contextual factors to consider. I mean, one example is medicines. You may not have certain medications available in one country compared to another.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's even more complicated than that, because there may be other issues around accessing certain services. You may have a guideline that says, go see the physiotherapist, and the closest physiotherapist may be 300 kilometers away. So I think if you're going to really make these systems useful, the clinician needs to be able to modify the guidelines that underlie the tool so that you're not getting pestered all day long with things that you're just never going to be able to do because you don't have it.
Should be tailored.
There has to be flexibility,
Yeah.
We have something called the link module where you can link to medical knowledge, and to guidelines which are local, and the link makes sure that you get access to things that are relevant for you.
Yes, that's good.
It's a little
Okay.
like the problem we're having with transferring the Finnish EBM guidelines to Austria, and we have to because certifications that are recommended in Finland are not available. So, but I think there's quite a large amount of uniformity where I think certain rules and guidelines can be applied pretty universally. I mean, that, for example, that you have to treat type 2 diabetes with metformin, that's pretty universal.
Yeah.
But others, of course, need to be tailored and adapted for the specific.
What's interesting to me about that, though, having worked with doctors and nurses for a lot of years in this area, and I don't know if your experience, Ilkka, has been similar or others of you around the table, is if you get it wrong once with your clinical support system, if you get it wrong once, forget it, the whole thing. It reminds me, Mark Twain, the American author, used to say that he had the world's smartest cat, because a cat once sat on a hot stove and never sat on a hot stove again, but never sat on a cold stove again either. And that's one of the problems with these tools, is that people have one bad experience with it, they throw it away.
Well, that's
We do the same thing with medicine, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually real observation also in Finland. So this is just to show that in different countries there are different coding systems, and even in one country there can be several coding systems. In Finland, GP support both ICD-10 and ICD-C. So the decision support system must be clever enough to be able to manage all those codes. So what's needed for building a generic decision support service? This is actually something that also the US Clinical Decision Support Consortium is trying to do, and this is what we have done in the EBMEDS project. So of course it has to be based on best available evidence. If a reminder says that you should do something, so that should be based on good evidence. That should be really beneficial for the patient. We should not develop these rules separately. In many places, we should share the ideas. We would put the ideas in one place and rules in one place so that they could be utilized in other places. And as was already said, if you have a rule, you may need to modify it to your needs. So you take a template and then you modify it so that it's usable for your practice. Then, especially in Europe, we have to translate the output in all the languages of the European countries. In the US, it's a little bit easier. Then we have to do this mapping between patient-record coding systems, and then we must have a functional application that can be plugged into the EHR. So quite many tasks to be performed. Now I have here some demonstration of this EBMEDS system which we have been developing. So this is the testing environment. This is not an electronic patient report. This is not something you see when you use the system. On the left side, this is just a form.
Please tell me exactly what this is, because I don't think I'm really with you.
Yeah. This is a form which demonstrates what kind of patient data you can feed in. So you can see that there are the gender and the date of birth and information about smoking or pregnancy. There are the measurements like blood test results or blood pressure measurements, the medication list for the patient, the vaccinations, the problem or diagnosis list for the patient, procedures that have been performed, and drugs to avoid, for instance, for which the patient is allergic. And these are just the items in the EMR which you could send to the decision support application. And this is a testing application. If you put in some patient data, so you can see what comes out from the decision support system. So now we have some ready-made patient profiles here, which we can take. The first one is a patient who is on thiazide diuretics and has an elevated creatinine value. Right now we are in the US mode, so that the lab test results are following in US codes. Now I immediately see that. Yeah.
Is this how should I see this? Does this input of data from the patient, it goes automatically?
It goes automatically. And what you see is only the reminder. Now in the right top hand corner you will see the reminder, and that is what you will see in the user interface of the electronic health record. So you are using your normal health record, and then there is one corner reserved for the reminders, and that reminder will pop up there quite automatically when you open the report or when you order a test, so the reminders will pop up. You need not do anything, it's fully automatic.
So I understand you rightly that the thing you want to develop is an automized system like that, where you can sort of adapt it to different health systems,
yes.
For instance Denmark, and then I can just use it in the Danish mode.
Yes,
and then
exactly.
I'll get Danish mode reminders if we, for instance, work it together with the data capture module where you can easily get...
Exactly, yes. And so you see that there was a reminder that you should change the diuretic to another type of diuretic. So this is one typical type of reminder. Then I can show you some other types of reminders which you can use. Here is an example that this patient has hypernatremia. The sodium concentration is 150, and we still have to put the date that it is today, because it won't use the old value. The sodium was measured yesterday, so it is not safe to recommend some fluid treatment, but if the sodium is from today, then you can have a recommendation, yes.
This problem is worse in the United States, but I would imagine it's true in every country. You have lots of different places where information is collected. So looking at sodium, that's what you reminded me of. The sodium may have been drawn in the GP's practice.
Exactly.
It may have been drawn in the hospital 2 weeks ago. Does the system sort of take account of that? I mean, obviously you've got to get it in. That's question number one.
I come to solutions to that problem a little bit later.
Then related to this, to the reminders, and if you're going to get into that, please, I'll be quiet on this, but it would seem also very helpful. I've seen some systems where under the reminder, you can click on a link that will take you to the source of the evidence.
Exactly, I will show that.
And you can click on another link that will give patient education materials.
Exactly.
So those are the other features that I think have been quite helpful in some of the systems I've seen.
Yeah, this shows that if you have, for instance, calculators or prognosis tools, so what the system can do is to transmit the patient data, populate the calculator automatically. So this is a calculator which we have on our website, but what happened here is that the sodium concentration and the patient's weight, they were automatically populated into it, so that you need not type them in. And this is one practical feature of these tools. Then take another example, and this is about treatment of deep vein thrombosis. This patient has deep vein thrombosis, and after the web is a little bit slow, let's see if we get the response. So it's also possible to build, I have to try again. So now, this patient has deep vein thrombosis, open the treatment algorithm. And we are building such algorithms with the feature that they utilize the information from the patient record. You see that the diagnosis code was for this doses, and